Initially, just to start the conversation, I would first like to know, this is a common question for everybody, that what do you think about literature and how has it evolved? Each one of you has 2 minutes to answer. So, Miss Anita ji, you can start.
Okay, so I think everybody will agree with me on this that literature is a mirror of society. It reflects whatever is happening in society, and I feel more importantly than that, it is also a record of what is happening in society. So, just like history tells us what has happened, literature is the written proof of what has happened, how people were, how they behaved, how they reacted, what were the good things, what are the bad things. Like they say, Ramayana is the time when everything was perfect. Ram Rajya, nothing could have been better. Mahabharat could be the worst of society. Everything that was wrong and corrupt. So that way, I think literature sets on record what society is.
Wonderful thoughts, ma'am. Dr. Anushri.
Literature, I believe, is something that is, alternate history, wherein history documents the facts as, happening in the society, in the world. Literature is something that represents what has been marginalized, what has been brushed under the carpet. So if something happens, for example, the war, history or the media will represent the factual aspect of it, maybe the numbers, but the human aspect and the intergenerational trauma that has been inflicted, that will be documented for posterity through literary works. So that is the role of literature, that it kind of keeps it alive for posterity, for other generations to know that, okay, this happened and this ought not be repeated. So it's a lesson that can be carried forward. So that is a role that literature has to play.
Wonderful. Divya.
Yes, as everybody told, I think while we talk about epics like Mahabharata or Ramayana for that matter, it was mainly voiced by uh, some people who had a common this thing. But as we go further, when we talk about Shakespeare, he was, more human. His characters were more human. And I think as we go forward, we see writers like Jane Austen, they focused on relationships. So I think it's evolving every day. And if we talk about today's writers, today's modern writers, and I think they are more into getting it into emotions, breaking down it into what reality is. So I think yes, it has evolved a lot. Now it is more about voices being told by a number of people, whereas before it was only a few people who were into this field.
Wonderful. Hira ji.
So, literature, according to me, is I think using language to express creatively, tell stories, to share ideas, to explore human experiences. And I think that helps all of us to understand the things that go around us. And it is nothing to do with a particular language or a particular folklore or a particular story. It is just spreading out the thoughts and the expression and the words that come from an individual. So whether it's put in a spoken word or written word or expressed through cinema or expressed through any form, I think that's literature for me.
Wonderful. It's so wonderful to hear all of you. Dipanshu ji.
Okay. So I think literature for me, it gives us a perspective, a mirror into the society in the past. It gives us good understanding of life, people, society deeply. I also believe that literature helps us to preserve culture and memory from the past, because it was the medium from which through which people were learning more about what has happened in the context, how humanity has developed and came to the existence of where we are today. So it definitely, for me, it bridge to connect us from the past to present and future, where we are. So that is what I understand from literature.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts about literature. It's really very insightful. Now, Hiraji, I would like to ask you, what was your exposure to literature while you were growing up?
So I can say that as a kid, my mother, she used to take us every month. We were three sisters. She used to take us to a bookstore every month, and we were allowed to pick up one book each. So three books came into the house. So we three sisters had three books every month to run through, and we had the liberty to choose the book that we wanted to read. Mommy never forced us to, pick up a certain kind of book. It could be a comic, it could be a puzzle book, it could be any form of literature, but she ensured that we picked up one book each. I still remember that in school days, I had a literature teacher who taught us Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar is so embedded in my head because when she taught us in class, she started with page 1, 2, 3, 4. The next class, the next day would be 3, 4, 5, 6, and it would go on like 5, 6, 7, and like it was so, and we used to like literally nod off and say, why is she repeating the same thing again? But today I realize the value of revisiting and rereading so much more when I'm writing myself, and it comes out, that has remained as a very inspirational part of my growing up for my own writing per se, and I used to read novels on the train, which of course now is I've retired, so I don't have novels on the train. But I think movies are telling me more stories these days, and I'm learning a lot. And I do believe that if we start talk literature as one of our, she mentioned that books are not being picked up, but there are stories here and stories that are being told about literature, about things that are happening in life, which we used to read in books earlier. So I think on the whole, I'm still exposed to literature, and it is like the beginning of my exposure to literature till today. I keep learning, and it's helping me as a writer, definitely.
Uh, That's absolutely wonderful, and kudos to you what you are doing. Anita ji, what kind of books would you like Indian writers to create in the fiction and non-fiction genre?
That's a pretty challenging question because writing is your own creativity, and one cannot really expect or guide anybody that this is what you should write. But generally, what I feel is that contemporary Indian authors are also trying to, some of them, not all, are trying to set their stories in a foreign country, a foreign background, and using names for the characters which would probably identify with the, say, British or European audience. I feel that when Indian authors are writing, they should take a purely Indian background, Indian context, use characters with which we Indians can relate, because we are a huge subcontinent and we have a big reading population. So why do we need to fall back on a foreign background or a foreign name to promote our writing? So that is one thing. Second thing is, as Hiraji said, that literature is also about language. So by default, we are also learning language when we start reading. And that is why I feel our readers should be very conscious of the language they are using, especially because we are going to influence young minds. So, obscene language or violence or abusive language should be avoided as far as possible. And there should be something, I think there should be a little bit of a challenging vocabulary so that when the reader is immersed in the book, he goes away taking something from it, enhancing his own language, enhancing something, being better than what he was before. When you start the book and when you end the book, you should have gained something in that process. So I feel that is what the writers should mostly focus on. And if you talk about fiction, of course, that is like, blank verse. It's all your own style, your own story. But when we're talking about non-fiction, seeing the contemporary society and the amount of aggression and the anxiety and the depression, it would be nice if the non-fiction writers could focus on how we can meet these challenges and overcome them. That's, I think, about it.
Wow. Those are really very, very good points that you have mentioned, and definitely aggression needs to be dealt with patience. Aggression needs to be dealt with patience. I would like to ask you, Dipanshu, how has storytelling through literature evolved through the years?
Thank you for this question, Divya. So, whenever I think about literature, books, and storytelling, I always go back to my childhood because is storytelling is what I connect the literature with. So, in my childhood, I came across with this concept of stories and literature through my grandparents. So they were like my first teachers who taught me various things like Vedic scriptures. My grandfather was avid reader, and maybe because of that, I still have the habit of listening to stories. I prefer audiobooks rather than reading the stories because it it has embedded in me. So I am always on the other side. I'm on the receiving side of literature. I haven't written anything of my own so far, other than research papers that I have done during my research work. So I was always on the receiver side. So what I'm providing as an insight is from that perspective. So the storytelling for me has evolved a lot. So in the beginning, it was, when the grandparents in family, we were told many stories by our grandmother, grandfather about, certain things like Panchtantra stories. That was the beginning point for me. And then it moved to Ramayana, Mahabharata, and then my grandfather also read other religions scriptures like Bible, Holy Bible, and Quran also. So he used to give me not the entire thing, but somewhere whenever there was a discussion, he used to give me some verse from it, and then we used to compare all of this. So that has been my exposure to literature. And then as life evolved, we went through different kind of books, magazines, and everything. So I think, if from my perspective, I see it as that earlier it was more to do with the conservation of culture, and how they were telling us like what is the right thing to do, the customs and the religious thing. And then it got evolved with a broader perspective. Like, more people I see are writing now today, women, and from across backgrounds, everybody has their own voice. They are writing and they are providing their input about the society that they are living in, the reality of the society. Because earlier, if you see in the literature word, in books, those were very selective people who were writing and giving their views about the society. But now it has changed because the platform has, given that structure, that accessibility to everybody. People who were marginalized earlier now have their say. There's so many medium now. So it was not only that, that a published author or at a certain level only that person would write and people would read. Now everybody is writing about something. The medium has changed. It's not only books. People are consuming stories and information through diverse medium. So that has two aspect like any other thing. It always comes with pros and cons, because then all unverified information also enters into the system, and it starts creating that kind of gossip, because there is no, I don't think there is any censorship or anything right now. So I feel this is how it is changing, and it is still evolving. But I think we have not figured out a way how it could be, how it could become more meaningful. So right now everything is evolving at a very larger stage. So, yeah, that's what I feel like, from oral to written to digital, and more voices that has come into the picture with more realities. And yeah, so the medium has changed a lot with the
Hmm.
storytelling and the style and everything.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes, definitely the medium has changed, but the impact remains the same. We require stories. Storytelling will not go anywhere. Coming to Dr. Anushri, I want you to touch upon regional literature. And what about regional literature and how does it help?
So regional literature, I believe, is a very powerful medium in the contemporary world, especially when there are a lot of homogenizing tendencies at play, be it at the national level or at the global level. So you have political structures that are perpetuating, advocating for a certain language to take over. Even at the global level, you've got English as a language that has been in dominance for over so many years. Then there are other languages, European languages like French and German, etc. So in such a scenario, I think regional color can kind of, help us keep the diversity in the literary world intact. Secondly, what becomes very important is that regional literature preserves regional language. If you do not have the literature, you do not, and by literature, I'm not just talking about the written word, even the oral stories, the songs, the cinema, whatever narratives are being circulated. So if those narratives disappear, the language disappears. When the language vanishes, the culture also, cultures, the values, the traditions, belief system, all of it kind of disappears gradually. So literature is a very important medium which preserves all of it, documents all of it, and keeps the diversity alive, which is very important. Secondly, it, kind of local literature, regional literature also has something very important. I was reading Vijaydan Detha. He's a Rajasthani writer, and a lot of his works have been translated into English. So that's how I've accessed him. So in one of his works, he thanks his teacher and colleague. So he says that regional writing, regional folklore is very rich with women's voices. Now, which is something which is completely in contrast to English as a literary language. Because in English, we had prominent literary women figures emerging only after the 18th century, after the novel came in. Before that, you only had male authors. And if there were few female authors, they had to be, kind of you to begin and then find out, okay, this is one woman writing in the 16th century or a couple of more in the 17th century. But prominent women writers emerged later, in the later part of the 18th century, 19th century. So, but if you talk about regional works, they're very rich with women's voices. Secondly, and you've got Elaine Showalter, she's a critic. So she also in an essay called Towards a Feminist Poetics, she says that English as a language does not have the vocabulary to kind of bring out women's experiences. Now, which again is in a stark contrast to regional local writings, which are very, very rich with women's idioms, women's songs. So that is the power and beauty of regional writing, that it kind of democratizes expression, wherein English as a language is more of patriarchal, more of represents power. Regional writing represents the people writing for themselves. It's kind of empire writing back in a very democratic sense of the thing. Not exactly writing back to the colonizer, but writing back to anybody who's trying to impose any kind of hegemony, any kind of autocracy on you. So this is your voice, the people's voice, that the regional writing can kind of foreground. So that is something very important to me. Then regional landscape, I believe, is very, very significant. If you come across any English language novel, even if it's writing about Indian setting, it will not be very, very rich with the, representation of the local landscape or the local geography. In contrast, if you will read, like if I just read Viridan Detha and read Perumal Murugan also, and The Legend of Khasas, which was originally in Kannada. So if you read even the translations of these works, you'll see how rich the descriptions of the local topography are. And you learn about maybe the local trees, the local rivers, the local deities. So that kind of brings out the beauty of the rich landscape, the culture, and the environment. And look, regional literature also is very, very beautifully, embedded in the love for nature. So if you read local literature, not just talking of India, I'm talking of even, be it Latin American literature, indigenous Australian literature, all of it beautifully brings out the human connection with nature. So that I believe is very important in today's world when the onslaught on nature has kind of become so banal that people, don't even take notice of it. It's happening, cutting trees to make a mall or to widen the roads. So it's development. But when some disaster strikes, then we realize, okay, this should not have been done and it was better earlier and things like that. So I think literature is a very powerful medium to kind of highlight all of these things in a very non-preachy sort of the way. You just read it, you absorb it, and it becomes a part of your consciousness without any kind of, activism or any kind of moral preaching being done. It just gets immersed in your psyche on its own. So that's the beauty of regional writing for me.
Wow, these are very, very good, profound insights on regional literature because definitely regional literature tells us about the civilization and about our culture a lot. Coming to Divya, we are witnessing a lot of pain and trauma, and like Anita ji also said, aggression, and somewhat it is a broken world. So, how can literature help in the healing process of the society?
Thank you for that question because I also made it a point that I include that and I have included that in my latest book. So I have talked about pain, I have talked about trauma, I have talked about emotions. So I feel that literature, it works very quietly and I think most invisibly in terms of letting out those traumas or those emotions out. Um, I feel that when a society or any person for that matter is carrying pain, people often don't have the language, they have the feeling in place. And I feel that literature gives them that language to, portray it or put it on paper. So whether it's a poem, a story, or even a single line where you are expressing yourself or saying exactly what you have been feeling or which you couldn't actually say but put it down. So I think that is where literature comes in. And also that sometimes when you are on the reading side of it, not the writing side of it, um, you also connect with characters who are actually going through it. They are breaking, they are grieving, they are rebuilding themselves, and you feel, or anybody for that matter feels, that this is not only me. So basically it shifts from why me to um, that this is also a part of me. So I think that is where literature plays a very important role. Um, then obviously there is also empathy when good good literature forces you to sit inside someone else's life. Um, you just don't understand it, but you feel it. Um, and when enough people start feeling beyond their own things or their own bubbles, um, I feel that society becomes a little less judgmental and a little less harsh. I also feel that literature holds on to a lot of memory. It doesn't let societies forget what hurt them, what shaped them, whether it's a personal trauma or whether it's history or stories that preserve truth. Um, or in facts. So healing, actually without remembering is also something which people avoid. So it's very much important. And I think that is why literature is in place, where you remember things and you just don't avoid it. Um, but there is something which people overlook also. Literature actually only doesn't highlight pain. It shows a lot of resilience also. It shows that there are flawed people who choose to go on, and there is that, a softness, a tenderness in places where you would not find it. And it also says quietly that life continues in itself, and that's how you heal. So that really means that literature creates that space, a space where you can feel, where you can reflect, where you can question, where you can connect. And I think in a world which we are living in currently, that's something which has to be there. That space is rare, but it's very, very necessary. Um, I won't say that it would, build systems overnight or build those things overnight, but I think it changes the way people think, and it slowly will change the world ultimately. So that is what I feel about healing and traumas, what literature does when you are going through something like
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. Coming to Hiraji, Hiraji, you said that now the attention has shifted to screen and storytelling on screen. So I would like to ask you, what kind of stories would you prefer to see on screen?
So, see, generally, I'm a kind of a person who believes in stepping with time. So, while I do not appreciate the kind of violence that we are seeing on screen and stories, but we have to understand that that's the way the world is going, and this is what the general public is liking, and we can't refute that and say that no, this cannot happen. But yes, we can also side by side align a few stories that are on the softer sides of life, the softer thoughts of life. Or even in these films, you will, we generally look at the violence, we forget that the even in those so-called storytelling, there is a lot that you can learn from it. You can actually see some good in that, but we generally just glorify the violence, the all that what we are seeing in front of us. It just takes us away and takes us along with the story. But when you sit back and contemplate, no, somewhere or the other, in every movie or in every thing that you read or you see, there is something that you can take back. That is my thing. So if you ask me what kind of change I would like, no, I don't think we need to change anything. I think we need to change our thought process in trying to understand where this is all coming from and where it is all leading to. Best we can do is pull out the good from it, appreciate what we like, and let others appreciate what they like. We cannot force thought processes. That's one thing I firmly believe in. We cannot force anybody to think like us, to act like us, or to speak like us. So for me, it's like I will take what I want from it for my life, and I will allow you to take what you want for it from your life. Just as in literature, every book that I have written, I have said, these are my thoughts. I write nonfiction, and I love to, put my thoughts across on different topics of life. But it's up to you to take something from it. It's not for me to highlight those things in such a way in your face that you feel that, oh, I don't give me a lecture. So I put myself into the nonfiction also. I write where I have failed. I write what I have thought about that particular thing. So I believe it's a thought process that everybody has to understand. Movies, literature, books, blogs, comments on Instagram. I think we all have to be very, conscious of what it means to us, and leave it at that. Don't try to tell others what they need to do or what they should do. I have this very little thing which I write after every comment that I make on an Instagram post. I've started writing, these are my views. I do not seek any debate here. So please read and move on. Every comment of mine ends with that, and I write with due respect. So I have realized that people have stopped reacting to my comments, Otherwise, we are just going on and on, trying to prove that, an argument that this film is good. How did you not like it? This is good. What did you not like about it? So this is not an argument in life. It is each one to his or her own. So in literature, so in movies.
Wow. Live and let others live. Very, very good thought. And I think that is how, and I think we thinkers, and I think that is why these thoughts resonate with us. And we can clearly understand because we are on the creative side of things. And I think creativity has its own way of working magic, being magical and getting us more liberated. Yeah. So with that, I would like to come to Aneeta ji and ask her, see, 21st century, we are still debating about feminism and how feminism has evolved. But what you write a character, a female character, how would you portray and how has it been portrayed through the years? How would you like it to be portrayed?
Okay, so I'm going to take a clue from Hiraji and say these are my views, and let's agree to disagree. So, first, how women have been portrayed through the years. So, take one. We've all read fairy tales, Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. I used to love those stories. But now, when I look back on them, I realize that how have the women been portrayed? Poor, helpless girls. They need a Prince Charming, or they need a fairy godmother to help them out, or the evil stepmother, or the witch, or the queen who wants to take revenge. So, invariably, in the past, women have been portrayed as the helpless, weak, or the evil protagonist, antagonist, not protagonist. Moving to take two, things like Raja Harishchandra, Mayor of Casterbridge, and even Mahabharat. Women are objects who can be traded when you need something. And then moving take three to contemporary times, we still enjoy. I think everybody has read about Anarkali and Mumtaz Mahal. We all know about them. How many of us know about Neera Arya? Neera Arya was a spy in the Azad Hind Fauj, Bhagat Singh's Fauj. She was tortured brutally, but she did not reveal his location. So I think what many writers have done is they have either used women as those abla bechari, portrayed them like that, or they have portrayed them like the wicked antagonist, like I said. Very few writers have actually brought out women as strong, real characters. Okay, there have been stories about Rani Lakshmi Bai, and there have been stories about Panna Dai, but they're very few and far in between. The major mainstream literature, like even Premchand's stories, the women are oppressed, subjugated by society. So this is what has been happening till now. And the way I like to portray my feminine characters, or the way I would like to read about them, is not as somebody who has supernatural powers, who has a magical wand, or who has some secret weapon with which she can vanquish the world. I want them to be real women who are strong. They have that strength of character. And with that, they can achieve what they want to achieve, because they will be the role models for the coming generation of young girls and women. So that is how I wish women to be projected, written about, real characters with real strength and rooted in the society of today. I think that would answer your question.
Yes, definitely. And I love your thoughts on this because I also feel that somewhere or the other we in a bid to prove that we have strength, and we sometimes forget to prove that women are also vulnerable. Show the vulnerability. Show the vulnerability. Vulnerability is also strength. When you see vulnerability as strength, I think the real strength of a woman will be projected.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your answer. And now, Dipanshuji, you spoke about audiobooks. I would like to ask you, how is the experience different from reading a book? And which is the latest audiobook that you really loved and you can't forget it?
Yeah. So, Devika, audiobooks is like, if I talk about the entire, connect this with the entire way we are consuming storytelling and everything. So this is one of the major breakthrough, I must say, because there is a portion of good number of people who have, who are different in the way they consume stories, so that is the reason these vast digital products that we see around with audiobooks or ebooks, or nowadays there is this app which you just put on any book title and it read the entire book. So because as a I think there must be something to do with the psychology or the brain that function, that these people, and I'm talking about those people are me, I'm representing them, that I enjoy more audiobooks the instead of reading it. Maybe because when I am listening to these stories and books, I am also able to, there is one of the sense which is free, and then I imagine it better. And so at the same time, I'm listening to those stories and I'm also imagining the entire situation and putting myself there. So I enjoy the entire experience more when I'm listening to these stories. And maybe it has to do with the way I have been into, I've brought up listening to all those stories instead of reading it. And so sometimes, even if I try, I am from a publishing background. I work for Sage Publishing, and um, I am surrounded with all the books and everything, but again, I prefer to put it in a audio format and then listen to it instead of reading it. So maybe it has to do with some psychological challenge or something, but this is the way I've been consuming all the literature and books. So, and it is again like in this modern times, if you see, uh, the entire shift is happening. So so the reading is still happening. People read books, articles, posts, ebooks, audiobooks, but all of this is becoming more fragmented, I feel, because this fast life and the busyness that we have for, so many things that we need to deliver in a day, we don't get that much time to actually sit and focus on something. So then this audio medium comes into the picture, where I'm listening to a book and I'm also working on something. So I think it's like multitasking, to do with something to do with multitasking, where I'm not just, if I imagine myself taking a book and sitting at the corner, I feel that I have to take out much time from out of my routine and just sit there and just read that book. Whether in audiobook situation, I'm doing other things as well. So that gives me opportunity to still pursue my, learning habits, but not pressurize myself to take out that kind of time, and which is a reality. If you see, this is a practical thing which is happening with every part of life, be it a student, a young professional, mid-aged person. So everybody is busy right now. So this medium has actually become a very good medium where people are still connected with the books and literature, but they don't have to put extra, pressure on their schedules and everything. So that's the kind of thing that I really love personally. And I feel that's the change which is there. So there are many books which I am listening to currently. One is with the fiction character Mia. That's a alien story that I'm reading right now. So I switch as per my mood in between. So I really love non-fiction work because it gives uh, idea into other people's imagination and what they think about society and what is happening around. But I also love fiction because it gives me a freedom of what is possible, what we are not seeing here, and where we can go, outside that kind of uh, 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 thing that we are consuming every day. So yeah, that's about it. And one thing I would also like to say is about the point that Anita ji was mentioning about feminism. I strongly feel that, whenever I read these kind of books where it's a fairy tale or these kind of things, we have been glorifying that sacrifice or that softness in a much larger way. I I still see women talking about these things and glorifying it, that I suffer, but I still manage to do these things. So I think that has to change in the form of somewhere in the form of storytelling or literature where we put that out that we should not be glorifying it. It was not right. It was actually not right, not correct, the way we treated women or the way we have asked women to take care of things by sacrificing their education and degrees. I was doing a research work, and in that I found I was pretty like I started that research work on a very casual note, but I identified there is a huge difference, when children, they are in school, they are studying, regardless of gender, everybody has the same enthusiasm about their career, what they want to do. I will be doing like about science, about maths, I will become teacher, I will become a pilot, something like that. Once they complete the degree, the entire thing changes based on gender. So for boys, for men, it will still remain the same. They are on the path. Marriage and everything will just, you know, be part of their life, and they will continue to build their life. But for women, it becomes a different thing. Even after completing their degrees, their education, there are good percentage of women who have sacrificed everything because they needed to get into the family, and they sacrifice because they feel that they have to take care of that part. And I that's the topic of my book, my first book that I'm writing about, that the three realities of women, which is completed and it will be out soon. So I will not talk much about it now. But I will definitely need guidance from you all. You are already experienced authors. So, yeah, that's something which always touches me when I see it all around. And that's the concept of She of the Word, why I even started it. Because I've seen it in my family. My mother, she's a gynecologist, but as soon as she would come from the hospital, the first thing she would see is, have you had lunch? Your father had lunch, and what about the clothes and everything? So I always used to feel that difference, with the way my father would come and he would just have, he would ask for a cup of tea and he will relax on the couch, and my mother would be like working and then still she is working. So that was the spark which was always there. So yeah, that's about it.
I'll just
Wow.
add one
Yeah.
line to this. What Dipanshuji has talked about glorifying sacrifice. That is actually true. And it is we women who do it the most. Like, I read an interview of a very famous CEO of a big multinational company. I'll not take her name. And she says that I came back after a long day at around 10, and I came in and my mother said, there's no milk, go and get the milk. And my husband was nicely sitting on the sofa and reading a newspaper. And she said, I said, why didn't he get it? So she said, no, how can he? He's a man of the house. How can he go out to get milk? And the fact that she spoke about it, and she spoke about it with a lot of pride, was something which I felt was wrong, because she should have said, being a woman the way she was, and in a position she was, the amount of money she was earning, the social status she had, she should have immediately said that I put my foot down and said, no, he also can go out and get the milk. That would have been a big message to all the women out there. So I think we women are also culprits as far as
Definitely.
creating that sacrificing ideal woman, ideal wife, ideal mother image that we want to create for ourselves.
Correct.
So
And
can I add also
yes,
something to it?
yes,
Can
definitely.
I add something to it? You know, we often talk about women empowerment. This is the word that is thrown to us very often as women empowerment. I am of a very strong belief that women empowerment should be, there is nothing like a template for women empowerment, because in a country like ours, we have so many diverse communities, so many diverse women. And I'm telling you a simple example of when we did a exercise for women in a school. She literally turned on, a little girl turned on and told me, but ghar jaake to mujhe yahi karna padega, like I'll have to do this only. And that's when it hit me, and I realized that we cannot just tell all women to step out of their house. You know, there is something that holds every woman back. It can be the culture, it can be the way she's brought up, it can be what she believes in. And we are no one to judge how a woman can be empowered. But yes, the woman needs to understand her power within the parameters, or within the little cocoon that she is. If she is not happy, then then we talk about empowerment. But as a template to say that, you know, all women need to be empowered and all of us need to earn for ourselves, stand up for ourselves and all that, I personally believe that no, it doesn't happen. It won't happen. In fact, we will harm the woman we are trying to improve or trying to support, because when she goes home or when she faces the family situations, she has got to live it within that family background. She can, of course, change it, but slowly, steadily, and with love. That's the only way it'll work.
I'm so impressed hearing all your views. Dr. Anushri and Divya, do you want to also contribute, please?
In this, like, I would agree with the Hira ma'am, what she just mentioned, that empowerment can come in diverse ways for diverse women, and it has to be about choice. Because being a very educated person myself, I faced with a very difficult choice post the birth of my child, which was to work. And I did not really want to work at that point of time because I wanted to be with my kid. But coming where I come from, empowerment was all about financial independence. And I was like, I don't want independence at this stage of my life. I want to be with my child for like another 2 to 3 years. So it has to be about my choice. And just because of social pressure and family pressure, I took up a job and I couldn't really juggle the responsibility very well. So like I gave it up after a year because I just took it for about, because I had a certain degree and I was living in a certain kind of society which had all educated working women. So I also accepted a job, but then it somehow didn't work for me because everybody is different. So after that, I strongly believe that it has to be about choice. It's not like, okay, just because you're financially independent and can step out to earn, that you need to do that to stake a claim that yes, now I am empowered. Empowerment is like when I can take a stand for myself that okay, I want to work, I do not want to work, I want to do something maybe non-profit or anything for that matter. So it has to be like when my choice, my dignity is something that I can stand up for, that is when I will be truly empowered. Of course, finance has a lot to do with it, but considering like in the scenario, the empowerment is financial independence. If I'm financially independent, I'm empowered. So that equation is completely wrong and misconstrued because a lot of financially independent women, when they come back home, they're a part of the same polite patriarchal setup where they are giving into the demands of their husband or fathers-in-law, any superior male figure in the family. So if you have the money in your account, if you have a job and a designation, and even then you have to, do what's socially appropriate. Then again, I don't think that is empowerment. It truly is not. Sometimes even like the women of our grandmothers' generations who could hold the family together, who had a say in decision making, were more empowered in that sense of
Yes.
the term. So that
Yes.
is, and empowerment has actually put women in a very difficult position. They're working,
Yes.
they're
Yes.
taking care of
Yes.
the house, they're taking care of the kids, and then she is like, I think, has become more vulnerable instead of being empowered because of this
Correct.
whole present empowerment wala scenario.
Definitely.
So
Thank
that I
you.
think is very problematic. I think this present kind of empowerment.
Thank you. Thank you. And rightly said, it doesn't mean if you are financially empowered, doesn't mean in true sense you are empowered, because how many times do you get to participate in crucial decisions?
Decision
Is
making.
your value, is your knowledge, or is your thought process being respected by the others in the family, in your amongst your neighborhood, in your amongst your peers? I think that is called empowerment and not only money. Divya, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so I would just like to add on because a lot of it has been already spoken about, and I just want to say that in terms of we as authors or writers or readers, we need to also make a shift from, though there has already been a shift because previously women were not even allowed to write for that matter. So that has changed to a lot of extent, and how we portray women in our stories. So, like, if I take an example of Arundhati Roy in The God of Small Things. So she has, basically drawn lines or drawn boundaries for her character. So it's also about uh, we portraying women in literature has moved. I would not say it has not. It has moved from basically stereotyping to a self definition kind of a mode. And I think it's still changing. But I feel that what matters more now is that um, more women stories coming out with more women stories. It has to be um, who gets to tell them and how honestly they are actually told. So that is also more important, the honesty behind how it is told. So everything whether it is women empowerment, whether it is anything, it has to be honestly coming out and not just for the sake of
Wow,
Well
lovely.
said, Divya.
Very well said. Dr. Anushya, one more question to you. So, you have written a lot of research papers and you have studied literature. So, what do you think? Where has literature, what is the impact of literature now?
I think
Scientifically.
scientifically, I think literature has a bigger role to play in the contemporary times, of course, because literature, thanks to social media, thanks to the increase in the number of publishing houses, the way advertising and marketing is working, the outreach has significantly increased. And there is a vast reading public that is there. And in the way in which literature is being offered, like textbooks, Kindle, audiobooks, so there are more and more people who can now have access to the books. Of course, there are more libraries. Even young students have more access to it because school libraries are becoming more evolved. College libraries, public libraries, even like in NCR, we've got very evolved public libraries also. So, with more people having access to books, I think literature has a very big role to play in way because I strongly believe representation matters a lot. How things are being represented, how they are being written about creates a certain narrative, which when goes into wider circulation can have a lasting impact. So maybe, and literature is something that outlives everything else, the written word. So if like Khalid Hosseini wrote The Kite Runner, I think about 20 years back, but if you read it now, and in the context of what's happening in the Middle East, Gaza, Israel, so all of it still remains relevant. And I recently I've been like reading a lot about the impact of war on children, and so and you all seen that a video that came in from Gaza in which children were enacting a funeral procession. So if you want to talk about the impact of war on children, rather than just quoting statistics from here and there, read the Kite Runner, and you'll see how childhoods are impacted, rather devastated by it. So literature will not only change the way you perceive the world, it will kind of foster empathy. It will kind of blur the divides, which are increasing all the more. Like there is so much about anti-immigration, that's happening in the West. Then even if you look within our own country, the caste, the religion, the gender divide is, there is a shift, but I think that's happening on a very surface level. Deep down, the stereotypes and the prejudices remain. And I think education and literature, cinema, all of these different ways in which narratives are circulated, these things have a very important role to play. The boy in stripped pajamas is one example I would like to give. So that's the first, when you read it in school, that's how you first become acquainted with the idea of something called genocide. And if in sixth and seventh standard you are aware of something through a children's version of the story, I think that can generate lifelong empathy, and you will always question injustice. So, and not through any preaching, but in a very subtle kind of way that you saw the film or you read this book and you became aware of an injustice that happened and something that can be repeated, because there is nothing that can never be repeated. So, and if a child is aware of it, I think he himself will never be a part of the system that goes on to perpetuate it. So reading, especially for young children, I would suggest that stories such as this can have a lasting impact. So be it in terms of injustices on a greater level, or be it forming friendships. Like if I read Jane Eyre when I was in class 7, and I always knew don't bully a child, because whatever Jane Eyre, the whole story was all about Jane, Mr. Rochester, and the mad woman in the attic. But the first thing was when Jane was bullied by the cousins. So that was the first thing that struck me when I read it. And the message was clear that this was not to be done. It can hurt the other person. And I think Charlotte Bronte was not even trying to make that message. But one episode powerfully explained it without being preachy, without being, specifically vocal about it. So that's what literature does to you. It kind of, ingrains in you values that ought to be there and is not very loud about it. So I think in the present world, literature has a very, very important role to play, and all of us, to whatever medium, must kind of have access to literature, and we should make sure all the people around us read or watch movies or listen to audiobooks, as Dipanshi ma'am said. But some way or the other, we must keep this thing alive. Thank you.
Wow, this conversation can go on and on. And to conclude this interesting session on literature, I would encourage all of you to read one piece of literature which is very dear to you. So, are you ready? Yes.
All right, I'll read. Okay. So before I start, I'll just like to say that Dipanshu spoke about the expected women roles. Even Dr. Anushri mentioned it. Even Divya said something about it. Now, generally, when I write poetry or when I write any piece, I generally don't write about my life. I write about what I see around me, around my friends. So this little piece that I wrote a long time back uh, is about हर माँ का सवाल. Okay, and this goes like this, that माँ ने अपने बच्चे से पूछा, आज क्यों बांध रहे हो मुझे इन परंपराओं की दायरों में, कल तक कहाँ थे, आई डोंट हैव टाइम फॉर यू, तो आज क्यों रोक रहे हो मुझे, मेरे चेहरे की झुर्रियों को मत देखो, इनमें हजारों अनकही कहानियां हैं, कुछ अधूरे सपने भी हैं जो खामोशी में खो गए हैं कहीं, पर अब बस, मैं क्यों किसी को पूछूं, मैं खोए ख्वाबों को फिर से सजाऊंगी, भूली हुई खुशियों के लम्हों में खुद को पाऊंगी, बड़ी मुश्किल से खुद को फिर से ढूंढ पाई हूं मैं, ये जिंदगी अब मेरी है, गलत हो या सही अपनी पहचान खुद बनाऊंगी, मैं ही अपनी ताकत हूं और मैं ही अपनी ताकत बनूंगी. This is what I had written a long time ago. So I like to write these kind of thoughts which make me see the other side of life.
वाह वाह, बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत बढ़िया. दिव्यांशु जी, आर यू रेडी?
Yes, I'm ready. So I wanted to, take out the most beautiful poem, that few words of that poem that my grandmother loved, but I couldn't remember the entire thing. So that's the reason I needed to take it out. That's from Mahadevi Verma, who always, carries that sensitivity and silence, but strength in her writing. So it read like this. मैं नीर भरी दुख की बदली स्पंदन में चिर निस्पंदन बसा क्रंदन में आहत विश्व हंसा नयनों में दीपक से जलते पलकों में निर्झरणी मचली. So that gives me insight of many women's reality, where they have more than what they show in outer world, but they just carry it inside softly, gracefully. I see it in a lot of women around me. So that's what I'm always attached to.
Brilliant.
The absolute flip side of what I said.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and I think Mahadevi Verma ji is a legend, and उनको उनको पढ़ना, उनकी सारी कविताएं बहुत एम्पावरिंग हैं, बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है, एंड इट द पोर्ट्रेयल, हर पोर्ट्रेयल एंड रिप्रेजेंटेशन इज लाइक वेरी वेरी ऑन अ डिफरेंट लेवल. बहुत इंटेलेक्ट चाहिए टू अंडरस्टैंड.
That is true.
या अनीता जी.
Okay, so I'm from Himachal Pradesh, and I'll read out a small poem written by one of our very famous writers. His name is S.R. Harnotji. So, and this is about, the migration from villages to cities and towns. So it's a very emotional expression on how it affects and impacts everyone. So it goes like this. गांव बहुत उदास है, बहुत घने हो गए हैं अंधेरे, पता नहीं क्यों. पौ पर बैठी प्यासी चिड़िया पानी नहीं पीती, बस रोती रहती है. खेतों में उगते बीजों के अंकुर लौटना चाहते हैं पृथ्वी के भीतर. बादल बहुत उदास से घेर लेते हैं आसमान, बिछ जाते हैं घाटियों के पेड़ों पर, बहुत जोर से कड़कती है बिजली. गांव और मन का रिश्ता बहुत गहरा है. सुनसान घर की देहली पर चुपचाप बैठा कोई सुनता रहता है कदमों की पदचाप. शायद कोई आ रहा होगा इधर कई दिनों के बाद. That's the
क्या बात, वाह, बहुत बढ़िया. It is like, I think poetry or any piece of literature draws you so deep into thinking, and you start imagining. मैं आप डूब जाते हो उसमें, उसके बाद आपको अच्छा नहीं लगता कि कोई आपको डिस्टर्ब करे. डॉक्टर डॉक्टर अनुष.
I would like to recite a stanza from Amrita Pritam, and it's called Aaj Akha Varis Shanu. It's about partition. So I'll just recite a stanza. Um, आज अखा वारिस शानू की तू कबरा विचों बोल ते आज किताबे इश्क दा कोई अगला वर का फूल एक रोई सी धी पंजाब दी तू लिख दिया वारे ने आज लखा धिया रोंदियां तेनू वारिस शानू क्यों. So it talks about partition, and because as you all know, Varis Shah had written about Heer and Ranjha.
Yes.
So Amrita Pritam, she kind of addresses him, and she says that one daughter of Punjab cried, and he wrote an epic saga about her love. Now, hundreds of women are crying because of the violence that has been inflicted on them and their families. So just rise up from the dead and write about the pain that they've been through, so that people can understand and empathize the lasting impact of the violence.
Yeah, but and I think the Punjabi language is very sweet, and it has a rhythm Means I have also heard different Punjabi poets, the contemporary ones. It is a wonderful language, and poems around partition and even 1984. It is, I think, very very. It gives me goosebumps. Yeah, Divya.
Yeah, so I am going to read it in Tamil. Um, so this was something which I'm reading in the process because I saw the film first. It's the name itself says a lot. Ponniyin Selvan, if you all have seen.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I will read just a para of it. The very first chapter. The chapter's name is Tirunal, which means Adi festival. ஆதியந்தமில்லாத கால வெள்ளத்தில் கற்பனை ஓடத்தில் ஏறி நம்முடன் சிறிது நேரம் பிரியமான செய்யுமாறு நேயர்களை அழைக்கிறோம். வினாடிக்கு ஒரு நாற்றாண்டு வீதம் எளிதில் கடந்து இன்றைக்கு 982 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு முந்திய காலத்துக்கு செல்வமாக. Now I would I would tell what it means basically. So the first para itself of the first chapter, which is Adi Festival, says that we welcome our readers to get into the boat of imagination and go sailing down the flood of sourceless, endless time. Let us travel a century for every second and quickly reach the times of 1,000 years before the present. So that is how I just wonder how, the person who has written, Mr. Kalki Krishnamurti, I don't know how, he welcomes the readers to the book. It's so warming, heartwarming to, actually get into. He welcomes you to go through what happened in the past, but to live it in the present. So it's, I just love the first, love the first para of the book.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I believe when you read the book, you will get more, you will get to know the story much more than what you saw in the film.
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
Definitely. So before I open it to the audience, I will just like to share a few lines from my recent poem. It's called I Am the Writer. The ink dries, the publish button glows. Words leap free into world's vast sea. Silence descends, pleasure in the afterglow, calm like dawn after storm's wild spree. Reader echoes ripple, quiet validations kiss. Soul rests in publication's bliss. Unpublished shelves hold symphonies unsung, yet each draft fuels the next triumphant arc. I am the bridge between silence and the tongue. I am the bridge between silence and the tongue, weaver of worlds from doubt's encroaching dark. 5 books published, a milestone in the fray. I am a writer, eternal, come what may.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Lovely, wonderful.
Thank you. So, Gilly, it is a wonderful conversation. And like I said, I think I loved the part where you all read regional compositions. I think India is a wonderful country and so many languages. We must celebrate the diversity of language and keep the regional literature alive. I think that is, as a writer, we should see to it that the regional literature is upheld and celebrated. So on that note, I would really like to thank you once again for being such a wonderful panel and sharing your thoughts about literature. Until next time, have a great weekend. Thank you so much.